Before we begin, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss stories that go far beyond headlines and fame. Tonight's story is not about glamour, jokes, or smooth songs. It's about a moment that was never meant to happen on live television, when the carefully built mask of a Hollywood legend slipped away in front of millions. Dean Martin was a man audiences believed they understood completely. He was the calm voice, the relaxed smile, the effortless charm wrapped in a tuxedo. But one night the cameras caught something different. Not comedy, not control, just raw truth. A man standing under studio lights, barely holding himself together, promising that the drink in his hand would be the last one. That promise didn't hold. And what followed became one of the most painful live television moments America ever witnessed. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't scripted. It was a man collapsing under grief, exhaustion, and a lifetime of emotional armor finally cracking. To understand why that night mattered so deeply, we have to go far back. Before fame, before Las Vegas, before the Rat Pack, to a childhood built on hardship, silence, and survival. For decades, Dean Martin mastered the art of appearing effortless. His relaxed posture, slow speech, and playful drunken persona made audiences feel comfortable, as if nothing in life ever truly rattled him. Most people never knew that the glass he carried on stage often contained nothing stronger than apple juice. The drunk act was a performance, carefully designed to disarm crowds and lower expectations while he stayed completely in control. But control is fragile when grief enters the picture. In the late 1980s, after the tragic death of his son, something inside Dean fractured beyond repair. On the night of that infamous live television appearance, he repeated to himself that he would only have one drink. It was the kind of promise made not out of confidence but desperation. When he walked into the spotlight, the illusion collapsed instantly. His balance was off. His timing, once perfect, was gone. His words floated instead of landing. Producers panicked behind the scenes, urging him to cut to commercial to save face. Dean refused. Leaving the stage would have meant admitting the truth, that he was no longer protected by charm, fame, or routine. When someone asked him to reveal something the audience didn't know about him, the room tightened. Everyone expected a joke, a wink, a harmless confession that would dissolve into laughter. Instead, Dean quietly admitted that his famous drunk act had always been a gimmick. At first, people laughed, assuming it was part of the performance. But Dean didn't smile. He didn't soften the moment. He didn't rescue the audience from discomfort, and slowly the laughter died. What remained was silence, and the uncomfortable realization that viewers weren't watching an entertainer anymore. They were watching a grieving father, exhausted by decades of emotional restraint. That night didn't ruin Dean Martin's legacy. It redefined it. It showed the cost of carrying pain quietly for an entire lifetime. But to understand how a man became so skilled at hiding hurt, we have to return to the beginning, long before fame ever found him. Before Dean Martin existed, there was Dino Paul Crosty, a shy boy growing up in a cramped apartment above a shoemaker's shop in Steubenville, Ohio. Dean Martin was born Dino Paul Crosty on June 7, 1917, into a world that offered very little comfort. His parents were Italian immigrants struggling to survive in a town built on steel, sweat, and survival. His father earned barely enough cutting hair, while his mother scrubbed floors and washed laundry for neighbors to keep the family from eviction. Their apartment had no running water. The bathroom was shared with other families outside. Until the age of 5, Dino spoke only Italian. When he entered school, his accent made him a target. He was mocked, isolated, and often humiliated. His older brother had to walk him to school just to translate. Dino learned early that the world could be harsh, especially to those who didn't fit in. By 13, school felt pointless. Survival mattered more than education. He dropped out after the 10th grade, promising his mother he would bring home real money. And he meant it. That promise pushed him into dangerous jobs meant for grown men, shaping his toughness long before Hollywood ever noticed him. As a teenager, Dino did whatever it took to help his family survive. He delivered bootleg whiskey across the Ohio River at night. He collected bets for bookies during the day. He shined shoes, pumped gas, stocked shelves, and delivered newspapers before sunrise. At 15, he lied about his age and worked brutal night shifts at a steel mill, surrounded by deafening noise and unbearable heat. These weren't character-building experiences meant for nostalgia. They were survival. Dino learned how to stay calm under pressure because panic could cost him his job or worse. This is where his famous motto, "Easy does it," was born. Not from laziness, but from necessity. Keeping emotions in check was the only way to endure. The relaxed confidence audiences later admired was never natural. It was armor, built piece by piece during years of exhaustion, danger, and fear. And then came boxing, the chapter of his life that nearly ended everything. By his mid-teens, Dino entered underground boxing rings under the name Kid Crochet. Between 1932 and 1936, he fought dozens of matches. He won most of them, but the victories came at a brutal cost. His nose was broken permanently. His knuckles shattered. A deep scar split his lip, leaving a mark fans would later call charming. But boxing didn't care about charm. One night in 1936, during a violent match, Dino took a rabbit punch to the temple. He collapsed face first on the canvas and stopped breathing. For 5 minutes, he lay lifeless as doctors rushed in. When he woke up, he didn't know where he was or who he was. He spent days vomiting blood in a hospital his family couldn't afford. The doctor warned him plainly, one more hit like that would kill him. That moment changed everything. Boxing had nearly taken his life. He needed a future that wouldn't end in a coffin. After walking away from boxing, Dino turned to something quieter, his voice. At 17, he began singing in small clubs, unsure of himself, performing not for fame but survival. He modeled his style after the Mills brothers, choosing smoothness over power, calm over force. Singing felt like the opposite of fighting. It healed something inside him, but life didn't suddenly become safe. To survive, he dealt cards in illegal casinos, ran errands for crime families, and escaped federal raids through alleyways more than once. His life balanced on a thin line between danger and opportunity. What no one realized then was that this mix of grit, charm, fear, and improvisation would later define Dean Martin's entire public image. By 1940, that image finally got a name. A bandleader suggested that Dino Crosty sounded too ethnic for American audiences. A new identity was created, Dean Martin. With that name came opportunity. He toured ballrooms, lounges, and clubs, slowly gaining attention. He married young, started a family, and struggled with the cost of constant travel. Then, in 1946, fate intervened. A canceled act forced Dean Martin and a young comedian named Jerry Lewis to fill time at a nightclub. The contrast between Dean's calm delivery and Jerry's explosive chaos was electric. The audience erupted. Within months, they were stars. From films to television to sold-out shows, Martin and Lewis became America's favorite duo. But success came with tension. Jerry dominated the spotlight. Dean felt boxed into the role of the straight man. By 1956, the partnership collapsed, ending painfully and publicly. Many believed Dean's career would die with it. They were wrong. Freed from the duo, Dean Martin proved everyone wrong. His music soared. His films gained respect. His cool image matured into something iconic. He became a Rat Pack legend, a Vegas king, a man whose presence defined an era. Yet behind the scenes, Dean avoided excess. He went home early. He valued routine. The drinking image remained mostly an illusion. But life has a way of testing even the strongest defenses. Marriages ended. Friendships faded. And then came the loss no parent should endure. In 1987, his son, Dean Paul Martin, died in a military jet crash. The wreckage wasn't found for days. That loss shattered Dean completely. The man who controlled everything could no longer control his grief. Paragraph 10. That live television appearance did not become legendary because it was shocking, but because it was honest in a way audiences were never prepared for. Dean Martin walked onto that stage carrying decades of discipline, restraint, and silence, and for the first time, none of it worked. His posture was unsteady, his eyes distant, and his pauses felt heavier than any joke he had ever delivered. Producers watched in fear, knowing something was wrong, knowing this was not the playful looseness viewers expected. They signaled for breaks, whispered instructions, begged for a commercial cut, but Dean stayed where he was. Not out of pride, but out of emotional exhaustion. Leaving would have meant pretending again. Staying meant letting the truth exist, even if it was uncomfortable. That night, the stage stopped being a place of performance and became a place of confession. The audience didn't see a star losing control. They saw a man who had finally run out of strength to keep holding himself together. Paragraph 11. What made the moment so devastating was the realization that Dean Martin's famous drunk image had always been a carefully designed shield, never a flaw. For decades, he used humor and illusion to decide how much of himself the world was allowed to see. The act gave him safety. It lowered expectations and kept questions away from his private life. But grief doesn't respect structure or image. The loss of his son didn't just hurt him, it erased the purpose of the mask. Applause felt empty. Laughter felt distant. The rhythm that once carried him through performances abandoned him completely. When he admitted that the drunk persona was a gimmick, it wasn't a revelation meant to shock. It was a truth slipping out because he no longer had the energy to hold it back. That silence in the room wasn't judgment. It was recognition. After that night, Dean Martin slowly stepped away from the public world that had defined him for most of his life. There were no dramatic announcements, no farewell tour, no final curtain call. He simply became quieter. Invitations went unanswered. Appearances were declined. Friends noticed that the man who once brought calm into every room now preferred solitude. Not because he was bitter, but because noise reminded him of everything he had lost. His days became slower, filled with memories rather than schedules. Fame no longer offered comfort. The routines that once grounded him now felt hollow. In private, he lived with grief the same way he had lived with hardship as a child, silently, without asking for help, believing that pain was something a person was meant to carry alone. When you look at Dean Martin's life as a whole, the idea of effortless cool fades completely. Nothing about his journey was easy. Poverty, violence, rejection, and loss shaped him long before success ever arrived. The calm voice, the relaxed humor, the smooth confidence were not natural traits. They were survival tools. He learned early that showing pain made the world less forgiving, so he learned to smile instead. That live television moment didn't weaken his legacy, it deepened it. It revealed the cost of being strong for too long. It reminded audiences that legends are not built without sacrifice, and that sometimes the most honest moments are the ones we never intended to share. Dean Martin spent his life making other people feel relaxed, even when his own heart was restless. His music softened rooms. His humor lowered tension. His presence made chaos feel manageable. He gave the world an image of ease because he knew how heavy life could be without it. In the end, he didn't need to explain himself or repair his image. The truth spoke for him. He was not a man undone by weakness, but one worn down by love, loyalty, and loss. And in that truth, his humanity became clearer than his fame ever was. So when you think of Dean Martin today, which version stays with you the most? The young performer finding balance beside Jerry Lewis, the smooth voice that defined an era of music, or the calm center of the Rat Pack during Hollywood's loudest years? Each phase tells a different story, but together they reveal a man who carried far more than he ever showed. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you appreciate stories that go deeper than fame, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to support the channel.